As an aside, we heard that JP Morgan Chase and Bank of America, the two largest banks in the world, they're both slated to lose $4.5 billion because they've had to charge off a lot of credit cards. So many people can't afford to pay their credit cards. Most people in America can't afford to pay their credit cards, or they're just not going to do it anymore because they're tired of being priced out of livings. At the same time, though, the remaining Chase banks are doing very well. And as a matter of fact, JP Morgan Chase banks won the contracts and the competition between other banks as it relates to which banks will be allowed to set up in Iraq. So now we're going to see a lot of JP Morgan Chase banks in Iraq to handle the what? Not only banking, but the exchanges. So for those of you who hold Iraqi dinar, that's good news. Al-Sudani, the Prime Minister of Iraq, along with Biden, issued a written joint statement about how they're going to do business together. And it alluded to the Iraqi dinar being reinstated and all of the tariffs and the sanctions against Iraq being lifted. But when we saw the actual signing of the agreements, we saw the military generals from Iraq and the military general from America signing those agreements. And so we asked ourselves, why is the military signing those agreements and not the presidents? I showed you the video on my channel, on my YouTube channel, Dr. Kia Pruitt YouTube channel, and the only thing I can come up with is the reason why we saw that is because the military is now in charge. Our Constitution already has stated that silver and gold must be used as money according to Article 1, Section 10, and we see 45 states in America repealing or removing the state sales tax from the sales of precious metals, which is in alignment with the Constitution that says the only thing that can be used to pay off debts are silver and gold. We also saw legislation being introduced to remove or repeal capital gain income taxes from precious metals. So if you seek to gain any type of gain from selling precious metals, it can no longer be taxed. Now, what had happened before is that the Internal Revenue Service unilaterally on their own made a decision to see and deem silver and gold as a collectible, like Beanie Babies, baseball cards, art pieces, or artifacts. Well, according to this legislation that was recently introduced, you will no longer be able to see, deem, or tax precious metals as a collectible because it's not a collectible, it's not a commodity, it is money. And that's why banks had to become Basel III compliant, because according to Basel III compliances, banks had to recognize gold as a tier 1 asset. They had to recognize gold as a tier 1 asset, or in other words, or in layman terms, they had to recognize gold and silver as money. You know, interestingly enough, the second part of Basel III compliancy is that banks had to prepare for and be ready for tier 2 assets. Tier 2 assets are called reserve assets, which are your foreign currencies. And most recently, we already made this announcement. I did a whole video on it. Banks met globally to determine their preparedness to receive your reserve assets. In other words, banks had to meet all across the globe to make sure that they were able, ready, and prepared to do the exchanges for your foreign currencies. Now, I've already talked about how Iraq has cleaned up their corruption, Venezuela has cleaned up corruption, Vietnam has cleaned up corruption. In fact, Parliament from Vietnam, the whole part of their parliament had to step down. The president of Vietnam, Venezuela has done some cleanup, not only in their parliament, in their administration, but the billionaires that were doing nefarious things and nefarious tradings, a lot of them were executed in both Vietnam and Venezuela. And I've shown you a couple articles, but I encourage you to look at how Venezuela and Vietnam has done deep cleansing of their countries, as well as Iraq. As a matter of fact, we already know that Al-Sudani, the Prime Minister of Iraq, stated that he would work with other countries to return the stolen money, work with the Central Bank of Iraq to revalue the IQD against the USD, and he would fight against and totally dismantle endemic corruption in his country. We also know that Al-Sudani was here. He met with Biden, but he also went to Michigan and he went to Texas because he has a high population of Iraq is in Michigan and Texas, but also he tapped on the shoulders of oil and gas billionaires to invest in Iraq. And he said Iraq has a lot of wealth that you need to exploit, and that many, many things are working on our behalf. Give you more information just to let you know that the whole world is changing, that God is in control, and that many, many things are working on our behalf. So my name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I trust that I've said something, anything, to raise your vibrations and to inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. See you in the morning.
This is Ron Anthony. Join Dr. Kia Pruitt on YouTube and get all the financial knowledge and how you can win from within.